Thank you for tuning in to the World Builders Anvil, episode 318. Today's episode, the most fantasy thing I could think of. It is so fantastical.
No.
We are talking about magic and dragons and all this. We need to know.
No.
You're always telling me to do show notes.
You've been working too much lately.
I worked so hard on this.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that today here in tips to improve your work-life balance.
I could probably use that.
Yeah, even though dragons are better. Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge,
break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build. Welcome back. Disappointed we're not talking about dragon magic. My name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm going to have to make up some show notes on dragon magic because now I think I excited Jeff too much with that intro. Okay, Jeff, I know we got a lot of things to cover in this episode, but we keep neglecting this responsibility, and I don't want to let it go any further. I want to shout out all the people.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to shout out all the people who have joined our closed Facebook group, the Fantasy World Builders Undercroft. Am I saying that correctly?
Fantasy World Builders Undercroft. That is correct. At facebook.com/groups/Undercroft if you've not yet joined.
That's the one. So if you haven't joined, go there and join. And for those of you that have recently, I would personally like to thank Summer, Davin, Caitlin, Roland, Nick, Paul, Neko, Sammy. I think this is Griem. Or Graham or Green. It's Graeme. So if I'm saying your name wrong, I do apologize.
Send a hate note to Michael.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. I think I'm going to go with Graham or Green. Okay. And also Daniel.
That's why I have you do it so you can blame Michael and not me when the names are mispronounced.
I don't mind trying. I'm doing my best.
It'd be more likely I would mispronounce them anyway. So.
All right, so let's get to it.
All right.
This subject, so we had talked a while back about doing episodes that weren't just going to be on, helping you guys write your novel. It is going to be stuff to help you write your novel, but it's indirect. We talked about episodes that we'd be doing that would be more life-based and more focused on you as a person and everything. This is one of those exciting new topic episodes.
Yes. So if you feel like your life is perfect, hang up, call back next week. No, actually just listen anyway. Just listen and comment and tell us how you would go about improving your work-life balance.
So today we've got tips for you guys on how to improve that. Can I talk about myself for a few minutes? Because it's like my favorite subject.
Well, when can I not get you to talk about you? So feel free.
So Jeff knows, I've certainly had a lot of conversations with Jeff about it lately because it's been at the forefront of my experience lately. And you guys know a bit too, because I've talked about it on the show a few times as well, that for the past probably 8 months, if not longer, work has been really weird for me. Things got ugly at the prior job I was working at. And then they laid us off and closed the business. They officially closed the office just the other day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And then I was looking for work and got an offer and I was very excited about it. And then that didn't pan out. And
I remember that one, yes.
Well, and here's what ended up happening. I took a position, which was my second choice. I had some apprehensions about it. And I think I really took that position as a knee-jerk reaction. And, because I had all this apprehension from
because it was there too. Yeah.
Well, because it was there and other offers were there also, but this one was my second choice. And what happened was it led to me working at this place and it's been a very, very poor work-life balance. And Jeff and I have had multiple discussions about it. So we thought today's subject would be good to talk about this.
In my history, I was a veteran. If anyone's out there been a soldier, they realize that's a pretty bad work-life balance. In my first corporate job, my first real job in quotes, was for a transportation industry company, we'll say, and that was horrible work-life balance. So I have a little bit of experience there too. And now I'm a small business owner. And if you're not careful, that could be the worst work-life balance if you, if you don't try and control it.
So we kind of have to define a few things so this conversation makes sense. Now, first thing you have written here, Jeff, is what do we consider work?
Yes.
When I'm talking about it, I am referring to my obligatory occupation that is paying for my lifestyle and, taking care of me and my wife. But I'm also including whatever is necessary time commitment wise to make my work. So for me, that means food preparation, having my clothing ready the day before, having all my things laid out, and
wait, you lay your clothes out on your bed so you can get dressed the next morning?
I absolutely do. I don't lay it out on the bed, but I lay it out in the neighboring room where I get ready. But you have to understand that with this work-life balance has been so bad that I will pretty much always lay my clothing out because I'm waking up at literally 3 a.m.
Oh, okay. So this is butt crack of dawn.
So I'm barely with it. And I don't want to make any additional noise to bother Sarah because she's still
sleeping.
Have
a spouse. Yeah.
Right. So it's really out of consideration so that one, I can get ready quickly. Two, I'm not opening and closing drawers and closets looking for clothing so that it doesn't make noise to wake up Sarah.
I was hoping to make fun of you here, but now I would feel bad because I actually empathize with that. So
no, feel free. You can make fun of me. I don't care.
No, that is a reasonable reason to be prepared.
So it got to the point with the amount of hours I was putting in, and that's the commuting. So the commute, that is also part of it. Yeah. So between prepping food, prepping clothing, the commute to and from, all of those things for me right now, that's what I would consider the air quote work.
In general, I would always consider the commuting as part of the work.
Yeah.
Now, for the rest of the stuff, only if it's different than normal. So like preparing food or getting dressed in the morning, I do either way. So I don't. So like if it's additional time because of the job, say there's a special uniform or something like that, I'd probably consider that, but not in general. Like, when I worked my last job, I was working IT and I did get dressed. I made my lunch every day to take with me because I'm cheap. Anyone who's met me would probably either be shocked or go, and I guess it depends on the experiences they've had with me.
Shocked that you made your own lunch, or shocked that you're cheap?
Shocked that I'm cheap, or made my own lunch. Either way, so it's like, sometimes it's like people I could think, to dinner with me, I tip really well, and they're like, oh, he's not cheap. But in most other aspects of my life, I'm very cheap. It drives my wife crazy. It's become a joke. It's like, so we're going to get a new car for you, husband. What's the budget? 22 cents. That's my budget for everything. For me. Now her car, whatever it takes, but my car, it's 22 cents. That's fair. So she's taken to like not having me look at the price for things for me. Like, I don't want to know how much my socks cost because it would probably drive me crazy. Now, food, but so I take my lunch to work because I was cheap, and it was pretty much sandwiches or whatever, but still. So the thing is, but I'm going to make my lunch if I'm here as well too. So I don't really consider that a time savings, but the commuting is definitely a time saving. Even if it's only 20 minutes, which wouldn't be a bad commute, that's still 20 minutes both ways out of your life. Every day you work, which is probably going to be 5 days a week.
So, are there any other things you want to add to what is work?
No. Essentially, it's anything I do for work specifically.
Okay. So what is not work then?
I don't consider working around the house work. Now, it is obviously work, but that's a different problem. And if you go to the relaxation accord episode we just did, our previous episode where we talked about life stuff, that kind of gets into dealing with that issue in general. And if you've done that, that might actually help you out here as well.
Yeah. Do we want to break into that a little bit right now? Because it certainly fits, and we're on subject.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you. I wouldn't consider housework as work. I would consider that a life necessity. So like doing the dishes, doing the laundry, making sure the bathroom's clean, like that's just things that you're going to have to do anyway.
Regardless,
right. And I would consider that part of my home life, not part of my work life, my career working life. So, but you need to have time for those things as well. So this is a perfect time for us to mention time budgets. We've done episodes on time budgets before. Certainly the relaxation accord episode. So if you haven't listened to those episodes, or you're not familiar with what we're talking about, a time budget is just the way you would do a money budget, except it's your time. There's only so many hours in a day. So if you don't give those hours an assignment and you don't stick to those assignments, the time is just going to get eaten up by other things. It always does.
Yeah. Sometimes when it feels like you don't have enough time in your life, it's because you're spending more time than you think in other areas, and it's not necessarily the job.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the job.
Yeah. You'd be so surprised how much time you actually do have when you start doing, like, I like lists. I write lists all the time. Like if I'm like, okay, I've got like 3 hours before bed. These are the things I want to accomplish. I write them all down. Some of those tasks might literally take seconds or minutes. Some of them might take half hour or an hour or more. It's like, okay, well, the kitchen's a wreck. I have to clean the entire kitchen, all the pots and pans, and I have to cook something for dinner. This is going to be an hour and a half to 2 hour task.
I just want to take a moment to mention, if you want help with your time and just a quick way to think about it and work through it if you haven't done it before, go to gardool.com/time, and you can actually get the time budget there. It's a free download. I hope that's the correct URL.
Another thing to help you with that is the people that you live with. Make some agreements. I will do these things on these days if you can do these things on those days. Like ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help or delegate. If you have children, they can do housework too. And understand that if you do have to, if you are going to delegate something, my wife and I were just talking about this like yesterday, because she's like creating this, she's working on this fundraiser thing, and she's, in charge of a bunch of different aspects, and she's letting go of some of the aspects to have other people do them. And I'm like, okay, if you're comfortable with the delegation of it, here's what you have to accept. Accept that it's not going to be done the way you would do it. And you may not like it. So if you can accept those things, then delegate it. If you cannot accept those things, then don't delegate it, because what's going to happen is they're going to do it, and either you're going to hate it and resent them or the work they've done, or you're going to end up redoing it yourself as a control freak anyway. So,
and sometimes you just got to work with people and go, you know what? Hey, let's, if you want to make a better fundraiser, you have to sometimes work with people. And like a good example there is you talk about make your kids do chores. I know lots of parents who don't have their kids do chores, and then all of a sudden when they're 8 or 9, like, okay, take out the trash, start doing stuff around the house, and they've never done anything. I've met people who didn't even do their own bills until they got married and moved out of their house.
I have a guy who was recently, he only worked for us for like less than a week. He didn't come to work one day, didn't call, didn't show, nothing. And when someone got a hold of him, we're like, dude, where are you? What's going on? How come you didn't come to work? He's only 19 years old, but 19 is a legal adult and should be prepared for the working world. His response was, I didn't have clean clothing. My mom didn't do my laundry. So he did not come to work.
Wow. Yeah.
And me and one of my coworkers are talking about it, and he and I both, our eyeballs like rolled into the back of our heads. We're like, then dude, you come to work dirty. That's not an excuse. Like, not in this industry. Do
your freaking laundry.
Yeah, even if you can't, like, fine. Okay, there are times when I can't get to the laundry. You got to put on a dirty shirt or put a different thing on.
Especially too, you're doing manual work where in a few hours, if you're doing your job correctly, you're going
to be dirty anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So put it on, come to work. I mean, obviously I'm not encouraging you to come to work sloppy and unprofessional and filthy and smelly, but
maybe do your own laundry.
If that's the choice for one day versus not showing up at all,
I would go to work dirty. Yeah.
Go to work.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
Yeah, no, it blows me. Yeah. But some people, it's like their parents really do everything for them. Like I said, I had friends who did not even write their own bills. They had like a credit card, they had insurance for their car, they had a car because like they left, they were older, and they went and got married, and all of a sudden they had to control their budgets, and they hadn't even ever done that, let alone take out the trash or clean up the kitchen because their parents did everything for them.
Yeah, you're not doing your kids any favors by not teaching them these skills.
We're the opposite. Eric has started doing housework. He's 2. He's been doing housework in our house for a while, and it slows everything down. And yet you're probably gonna have to redo it as the parent, but ultimately it pays off a dividends. So when he starts doing them, he can do them by himself. And at some point, as he ages up, he will become better at doing them, even though then you have to fight with him to get him to do it. But that, it's a different problem for a different day.
Yeah, that's true. So we've got what we consider work, what we don't consider work. Anything else that we don't consider work is quite simply the fun stuff, the joyful time you spend with your family, your loved ones, any time you have to yourself, you playing video games. This is obvious. These are the things that you want to spend your life on. These are the things that you want to be doing. Any hobby,
Well, and the problem is too, if you don't get your work-life balance squared away, you end up going into escapism. And we can talk about this in the relaxation court too. You go into escapism, and then the problem is you're not getting the stuff you need to get done in the rest of your life done because you're just escaping more and more. Or that's a risk you take if the longer it goes on. So it's best to avoid that, especially if you have relationships with other people, whether or not they're your spouse or your children. It will hurt those relationships, if you just continually escape.
And I also want to point something out here. It also depends on your the occupation you've either chosen or has been chosen for you by life and your circumstances. Because obviously a lot of people work in something that they've been doing for a long time and they've just always been doing it. They didn't actually choose it. It's just where they ended up. So like I am an electrician. If you asked me when I was 19, I had no idea what I wanted to be. And I still only have a couple of ideas what I want to be when I grow up.
That's right.
Sarah and I have actually had discussions. I think I do know what I want my next one and or 2 careers to be after I'm done with this. And the reason I bring this up is because some people from an early age know what they want to do, and thus their job is not, it's a joy, so it's a passion. Some people are doing something they're able to pay their bills doing something they absolutely love. So it's not as big of a
great way to live.
Yeah. It's not as big of a, you're funny. Jeff is laughing because this is Jeff's life I'm describing right now. So some people it's not as much of a work-life balance there because they really like doing what they're doing. And I'm not saying that I can't stand my occupation. I do like my occupation. I don't love it, but I do like it. And there are aspects of it I really like. There's aspects of it I don't like. What I really don't like about this job that I've had recently is how much extra time it was taking from me. So when you talk about the escapism, like that's definitely been me for the past month. All I got time for is getting ready for work and doing things. And when I get home, it has sapped so much of my mental energy and physical energy that all I want to do is watch a little Netflix, have something to eat, and crawl into bed, and then have to slog through it the next day.
Yeah.
And that's not how I want to. It's not how I want to live. It's not how my wife wants me to live. Because the person I am being is not. It's not like I'm angry or like being cynical and horrible all the time. She just knows that I'm not real happy with this balance and the time commitment. So my average day at work is my work day is 8 hours, but I don't always drive to the shop. Sometimes I drive to the job site. So I'm spending my own gas to do that. And I'm doing that to get a little more time for myself. Because I can hop in my car and drive to the job site, and usually it's faster than driving to the shop, getting in a van, and then driving out to a site, and then getting finished at the site, driving back to the shop, getting out of the van, and I'm also loading about 200 pounds worth of tools each time. So every time I switch a vehicle, I'm taking all of my tools in these. I've got these 3 huge toolboxes, and I have to load them in and out every time. It's a pain in the butt. So finally, I had to, make the decision. I kept talking to other people. I am in a very fortunate scenario that I am in very, very high demand. So me finding another job is not hard. This may not be your circumstance, but for me, it was just a matter of being choosy and continuing to talk to people and going on interviews. So I found a place that, one, the shop is closer to my home. It's only 20 minutes away, not more like 30 minutes for this other place. It's also very conveniently located. The other place, I have to take a bunch of back roads to get to it. Whereas this one is right off the highway. And it's conveniently located for the drive home because it is north of a major highway, which means at the end of my work day, I just hop on this one route, go to this other route, and boom, I'm home 20 minutes later, regardless of how bad the traffic might be at that hour. Like, it's still a pretty easy commute where I will be driving. So I gain more time because of the driving. I drive just from my house just to this place. The other thing is the place I'm working at right now, literally every single day, I don't know where I'm working the next day, and I don't know what time. And I don't find these things out until 3 to 5, sometimes as late as 7 or 8 p.m. the night before. So my bedtime is different every other day. I sometimes get up at 3 in the morning to drive to, wherever the next day to be on the job site at like 5:30. And all of this is just eating so much of my life that I had to consider and finally move on and get a new job. So if you find yourself in this sort of scenario, like you have to take that into consideration. If you're not happy, if it's taking that much of your life and, you don't have the energy to do the extra things, if you don't want to sit down and write, you don't want to, go work on a home project, but these are things that you want to do, these are the things that you do find joy in. But when you finally get home, you're like, like something's got to give. You're not living a full, happy life, and you deserve better. You deserve better, and it's out there for you. You don't have to sit in this scenario.
And like I said, Mike has very recently been in this scenario. And him too. Michael more recently than me or Mike, but
and the one other variable here is my wife is barely working right now. She's in school. So not only am I dealing with sometimes you feel, well, for security, I should stay here, but I'm also dealing with my income is the income that's taking care of all the bills.
So you can't risk your family. Yep.
Well, right. So me making a decision like this to switch jobs is very serious. I can't just go, oh, well, it's okay if it doesn't work out. Let's just, go do this other thing. Like, literally, I'm a little concerned about the transition from leaving one job to the next one because of the gap in pay.
And I want to be upfront with people here, especially the newer you are to working, in quote, real jobs. There's a lot of fear and unknown when you transition. Once you've done it, each time it becomes a little easier. But the thing is, you can't let that fear run your life. Use the fear to make yourself think through what you're doing, and don't wait, because the longer you wait and you're in a bad position, the more likely you're going to end up making a bad decision rashly.
And something that Jeff and I have talked about before, we've said it many times, that time is your most valuable commodity. You can't ever get it back.
Yeah. So
every day you're spending at a job that you can't stand, that's taking up more of your time each day than you would like it to, it's time you're never going to get back. And sometimes, letting go. Maybe you make good money and maybe you're just like, oh yeah, but I'm making good money here. Okay. Maybe you'll have to let go of some of that. But if it gets you an extra half hour, an extra hour, an extra 2 hours of your life back every day with your spouse, with your kids, with whoever else is important to you in your life, it's worth the dollar loss.
No, it's like I don't make as much money as I used to when I worked, but I now get the choice to spend usually about 4 hours every day helping like literally educate my son. And obviously at this point it's a lot of playing because he's 2, but that's something
that's something a lot of people can't say.
That's a lot of people can't say that, and the irony is, I could probably go out and get another job, in the IT field. There's possibly a job out there for me to get,
maybe,
but the problem is then, and I have daycare on top of all the other expenses. So now it's like I'm going to be working really to pay someone to watch my kid and teach my kid probably things that I think are wrong, instead of me teaching him the right things for which he's going to make his own determinations on whether or not he listens ultimately. But that's just, who cares about that part, right? It's I get to enjoy the journey, with him, and sometimes be freaked out by it. But the thing is, you get to make these choices in your life, and ultimately it's for you and the loved ones who are really affected by your decisions to make these choices and work together to do them.
All right. So if you find yourself in this situation, you're out of balance, you realize you're out of balance, and you something's got to give. So some of the tips that we have for you here, like, what can you do to fix it? Okay. So 1, talk to your boss. Like, you might be in a more forgivable and manipulatable or malleable, not manipulatable, but a more malleable circumstance at work than you realize. Sometimes it's just a matter of telling your boss, look, if we keep going like this, I'm going to have to find something else for myself. And since, I like you and you want me to keep working for you, let's find a compromise. And sometimes that's all it takes is a conversation.
Well, it's funny. In my last job, I actually loved my boss. A really good manager, and I remember, like, I was physically getting ill in the building. Like I used up like all my sick time, and I was having trouble. I'd come home. I'd go to sleep right after I got home. Kristen's worried about me, and you're going through the process to figure out that there's something in that building that makes you sick. It's a very difficult and long process, and really there was, I believe, was a mold issue in the building. They still will never admit to it if it was. But finally, my boss had an excuse to put me out of the building, and I talked to him, and I'm like, when I run out of time, I have to go. I can't start not working and not getting paid, And so he got an opportunity, a reason to move me in my current job into a different facility. He did, and my health issues all of a sudden improved. And so that wouldn't have happened if I had not had that conversation. Now, I've had other bosses who I would have been horrified to even approach because they were horrible human beings.
So, my current boss, great guy. He and his wife, great people. So it's not like I have a problem with them. It's simply the amount of time. And I did have a discussion with him early on. I was like, I don't know if the time commitment is gonna work, because like the home, I didn't realize that he didn't pay the customary one-way drive time, which is kind of a standard. And so that I was like, I didn't ask that during the interview because I assumed it, and I shouldn't have. So that's on me. So you may be able to talk to your boss about it. You might be able to do, adjust the responsibilities at work. Maybe you maybe you're doing the job of 2 people, and some of it needs to be delegated to somebody else.
Yeah. Most definitely. So, and sometimes if you really think your boss is that odious of a person, that you can't talk to them, you have bigger issues, and that will lead us to different points later on here. The next one is, sometimes these problems are temporary, and so, like, my wife is a CPA. From January to April 15th, it can get kind of busy.
Yeah, she's busy for those months.
Yes. Especially, like, I think there's a big deadline in March and there's a big deadline in April. And so those 2 periods of time, I pick up more stuff around the house. I I understand that she has to be at her desk more because of the field she's in. And we work together to make that work. So we rebalance in her favor then. And then when it's over, we rebalance to something more normal. That's just a fact, that's, kind of part of our relaxation, of course, is we understand that, during tax season, things change.
When Sarah started school, and our constant mantra throughout this adventure has been whatever it takes to succeed. Whatever it takes. If that means, so at the beginning, it was like, okay, well, I'll cut some of my hours down so that I can do school. And then by second semester, I told her, even at the beginning of school, I was like, look, if you have to not work at all to guarantee your success in school, then that falls into whatever it takes. And I told her, I said, she's like, can we get by on just your income? And I'm just like, we will do it. I'm like, people do it all the time. They do it with a lot less than we do.
It's funny how easy it is to adjust to a budget when you have a different budget. And the problem is when you get more money, sometimes it's harder not to adjust.
Right. And that's something that we're already preparing ourselves for. Like, we already have plans for her new money once she gets working out of school. But so for me, I'm going to work 8 hours a day and plus the commute and doing that. But then I'll come home and, she's been doing schoolwork for 8-10 hours, and then I'll do the dishes and I'll do dinner. So I'm taking on a lot of that home responsibilities so that she doesn't have to worry about it and be stressed out about it, and she can study and focus on school.
Here's one of those things that people have to realize, and a lot of people in school don't even realize this. And my wife, I know, has this, she also teaches accounting, and she has this discussion with her students. And like, if this is a 3-hour class, we expect that you're going to work that much in the class outside of class as well.
Yeah.
So it's really a 6-hour commitment. So if you have a full-time load, which is, about 20 credits, it's going to be about 40 hours you're working that week between homework and school. And those probably aren't the correct numbers. It's been so long, I don't remember.
My wife could study for 10 to 12 hours every single day, 7 days a week, and she would still not quite feel perfectly covered for everything. And she gets good grades, but it's because she's in the library almost every day. She is in open labs almost every day they're available. It's very rare that she skips an open lab. But it's what's that falls into.
And the most important thing for her is going to be to do an internship, ultimately.
Say that again?
An internship when she gets the chance. So,
well, that's built into the education. So she's doing. Oh,
that's good. Okay. Some schools are bad at that. Yeah.
Well, she's doing a clinical now, 1 day a week, and she's in a hospital setting for that. And
was that sort of like a very light internship, essentially?
Basically, and then next semester, that's all she'll be doing.
Okay.
So she won't have classes next semester. It's all practical application.
As sometimes, and this kind of is going to get to our next point about leaving your job. And one of the big things I have is it's not always a possibility at the moment.
Well, I want to put a highlight on our last one. So rebalance your home, have a discussion with who you live with and your spouse. Maybe you adjust the responsibilities. And if you've never defined the responsibilities of your household, that can be a very empowering discussion. Sometimes it's like,
go back to the relaxation accord.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be like, oh my gosh, I'm always frustrated because this kitchen is always dirty and I come home and I expect it to be clean. And maybe your spouse is like, oh, I don't mind doing this. I don't care. I just don't ever think to do them. So you just have a discussion like, would you please do the dishes before I arrive home? Because that makes my arrival into our home non-stressful versus when I get home, I'm stressed out if the dishes are dirty. You know what I mean? It could simply be just a conversation that changes how you enter your home.
Or maybe if you both don't like it, one of you bites the bullet, but there's something else that you get out of it. So
right. All right. So talking to your boss, rebalancing your home and home responsibilities, and our last big one is leaving your job.
Now, we're not advocating that you just walk in tomorrow and tell your boss to go bite it and leave. Even if you're someone like Mike, whose job is in demand, or Michael, who's I guess his job is in demand too. That's what I said earlier.
Very, very much so.
you do have choices, and it's a little bit easier to do this. But if you don't, when I was in the service, I got no real skills that were useful in the real world. I was a combat arms soldier. I think I got like
not a whole lot of Bradley turret operators in the civilian
that's right.
life.
That's right. Cavalry scout skills don't have a huge translation with the real world. Now, I'd always put my resume like I was responsible for a budget of I think it was like $3.4 million, which technically I was. I had to sign for all of the equipment, and the Bradley was my responsibility when I was the gunner for a lieutenant. I was in charge of the track.
Mm-hmm.
And it was technically $3.4 million worth of, so it looked kind of good at a resume, but really it was how much the Army pays for stuff is maybe a little more expensive than what you might pay. So, but yeah. And then of course I make the driver sign for all of his stuff, and I'm indirectly in charge, but that's different. But, and the other thing is too, my first, job I was in college, and, trying to get skills to do a job, I'm chucking packages, and I know I could have never made a living doing, package, handling. I mean, you can for a while, but it just, I always had the goal, the next thing I was working towards, and you kind of need that in life, because one, it kind of gives you direction and where to move, to say, if I want to do this and I don't have the skills, what skills do I need to do that? And it's not always going to college. Like if you want to start your own business, it's finding out what that business is, and what skills you need to do that business, which you can almost never learn in college. I hate to say that. There are certain things you have to learn in college, but there are other things that college is horrible at teaching. And running your own business is one of them. Or they have these sales degrees that they have now, which are just, I think, a joke. But go ahead and figure out where you want to go, and figure out what skills you need, and realistically where you go. And the thing is to find people who are doing it and just ask them. Most people like to say, oh, this is what I want to do. Or they'll be like, oh my God, don't ever do what I'm doing. Air traffic controller is not that cool. Don't do it, So, but, with that, you might have to plan an exit. It might not be right away. But the thing is, rebalancing the home is a great thing to do, but it's almost always a temporary solution. It's like, it's easy to do. Like if I know that there's a light in the tunnel and in April things change, with tax season. But like if what you want me to change my life for 20 years, I know so many people at UPS that would have that conversation with their spouse. Like, when I retire, we will go out and enjoy life together, because I'm going to work really hard. I won't be home a lot, but I'll be able to retire at 55, and then we can enjoy life. And so many people where they would either have a heart attack and die, or their spouse would die, or something would happen that they would not get that time.
Or they grow apart because they're not spending any time together. They get divorced. Yep.
You saw that a lot in the service too. A lot of guys in the service end up getting divorced because you end up deploying, even if you're not at war, which, let's be honest, we're at war all of the time now. But even when you're not at war, you're still deploying to other places. You're gone for at least a month at a time sometimes, and easily 6 months to a year. You can be gone, and that hurts a family. Even going into it, if you know it, it's tougher to live than it is to than what people think. And same thing, like if I had a chance when I started off to work consulting in IT, but there was a chance that I would have had to go to Korea at the company that wanted to hire me, in which case I'd be gone for a month at a time. I'd have made really good money, but I'd be gone for a month. I think they give you like a week off. They give you all of your time off at one time back home. But because it's so far, it's less frequently, where like if I just go to a different state in the US, I'd be gone and come back for the weekend. There, if you're really far away, they give you all of your weekends smashed together, like after a month or so you go back and spend time with your family. But
so would that have meant that you wouldn't have had weekend time at all over there? So you'd be working for a month straight. Well, that's what they hope,
right? You get no days off, and
no way.
Yeah, so it just was not the life for me. It was not worth the money. And especially I had met Kristen at that point, so I knew I didn't want to be away. So
So one of the most important things that you can get out of the concept when we're talking about potentially leaving your job is knowing what you want. And that doesn't necessarily, for me, I'm going to be very specific. That doesn't necessarily mean that okay, well, I want to leave this occupation and I want to start, I'm going to stop being an electrician and I want to be a photographer. Okay, fine. But it might not be that. It might simply be that, okay, I'm an electrician at this company and I want an extra hour out of my day. So what kind of company do I need to go to get an extra hour out of my day?
Yeah. And I want to be honest too. It's like, it's not always about it's figuring out what's the most important. It's like one of the reasons I started doing the bookkeeping with Kristen at home was because I could make more at an hourly rate, have less hours, and I didn't need to go in to do a job anymore. So that's one of the reasons like why we did bookkeeper training school was specifically, because it just, especially once, like I left the job and then she got pregnant like right after. It's like, I want to be home with my wife and now my kid. And so bookkeeping gave us the thing where I don't think bookkeeping, anyone's like, yeah, I want to go keep a book today, but the thing was the work did not take a lot out of me. It was something like with my technology skills, I could automate and I could do what is a lot of work in less time, and so keep in mind that your path, especially as a creative, right? Maybe the time is even more important than
the money.
What if I could get about the same amount of money in 20 hours, or in 10? Because some people I know work jobs that really don't pay a lot an hour. It's like my job was a little bit tougher. An electrician pays really well too. Sometimes, when the money starts to look good and you build your life around a budget of $100,000 or $200,000 a year, you're still living paycheck to paycheck if you spend all that money.
Yeah. when I the place I was working at 6 months ago, I was working for the highest rate I have ever earned in my career. And when I switched, I dropped about $4 an hour, but I'm like, well, that's still a really good rate. And I was making that like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So it wasn't dramatic, but it's tough to let go of money, especially when I'm the one that's, doing, I'm the one that's responsible for most of our financial needs right now. But when you guys are thinking about this decision, you have to think about, what you want, what you need, like how much do you need to get by, not how much you need to be able to order a pizza every Friday and how much you need to be able to, go out and buy comic books or the latest fiction, and go to the movies twice a week. How much you need to get by, because these decisions, these big life decisions, almost always demand a temporary sacrifice. Temporary. Really, you really got to attach the word yet and temporary and like only right now. Like, I'd like to be a photographer, but I know nothing about photography yet. You can learn these things. Oh, well, I'm going to quit my job, but then I'll be making $5 an hour less. Well, right now, until you get through this temporary, phase to get you to where you want to be. Like my wife quitting her work so that she could return to school has been a huge financial change. The irony is that we built our budget in a fashion that it really hasn't made very much of a difference in our lifestyle. Almost none, really. Yeah. And that is extremely exciting because we know we were perfectly fine to be able to live on just my income. So when she does start working again, we're going to be effectively swimming in it.
Because the toughest thing is when you don't budget your money too. It's surprising. It's like, where did all of this money? We didn't have any extra last week, but now, we're living basically the same on half the money. How's that possible? And then you realize, wait, maybe 15 lattes a day. Starts to add up.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a time budget. Sometimes when you go in and you look at where you're really spending your money, you can it's like me. I brought my lunch. I took a thermos of coffee to work every day too, and I saved lots of money.
The other big thing I want to get back to about this is the idea of being afraid, because we know that this can be a very scary thing, and the idea of uncertainty. There really nothing is certain except death and taxes, which is why it's good to work in that field. So your wife's very smart in that regard. But you got to realize that, like, look, you guys could be stepping off a street corner tomorrow and get hit by a bus. So going back to what we said about time, you don't get that back. If it's something you really want, or if you're just really burnt and like you're not getting that home life, work life balance, there's no guarantee that you're going to get it. You know what I mean? You have to make a change, and it's well within your power to do so. We know it can be scary. I have worked for 3 different companies in the past year and a half. And that is, if you go to my resume, I was working for one company for 9 years. I was working for another company for 9 years. Very few guys in my field can say that. A lot of guys bounce around, and all the jobs that have been pulling me in for interviews, those 2 things on my resume is what they find the most attractive, because they see somebody that does not go from job to job to job to job to job.
Yeah.
So I understand, because I've worked for 3 different people in the past year and a half. I get that it can be scary. I've had to go into different professional environments, not knowing how I'm going to be received.
Is my new boss a bigger jerk than my last boss?
And are my new coworkers going to respect my experience or not? Like, sure, I mean, I've been doing what I'm doing for almost 20 years, but that not everybody puts a lot of stock in
I'm
that.
still trying to get my friends to respect my authority. So,
I have one coworker who's been doing it longer than me, and sometimes we rub each other the wrong way. I've got other coworkers who have only just been getting their feet into the field, and I teach them. I'm teaching them things all the time, so they really appreciate my presence. And whenever you're moving into a new place, it can be tough because you're now in a new body of water, and you don't know quite how you're gonna gel in there.
Yeah. All right. So now for the world building task.
Leave your job.
Wow.
No, was that not it?
I was just gonna have you build a new job for your protagonist. Put a job description together for your protagonist or something like that. That's a fun little related thing, to think about.
I'm trying to think of what
a different way
would be a good. So build a job.
I do like
for
that.
your Okay.
What's the job description for your protagonist?
Hero for hire.
That's right. And I want good bullet points. Good bullet points. And
those bullet points.
I need measurable metrics for each bullet point, right? So we can score them. Okay. That sounds like lots of fun. Real world task.
Real world task. I want you to take a look at your work home life balance. One, just assess things fairly openly and honestly. Are you happy with how much time you have for yourself and your family? And you might be on the opposite side of things. Maybe you have tons of time and tons of excess free time. And maybe you want to make more money. Maybe you need to add some hours into your life. Most people are probably not in that scenario, but some people might be. You might be like, you know what? I've got all this extra time. Maybe I take Jeff's bookkeeping class and make a few extra $1,000 so that I can, buy a better car or put more away for retirement. And you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of opportunities out there. You have to, be willing to give things a try. Be willing to be uncomfortable. But assess your situation and make a decision based, like really be honest. Am I happy with this? And is this what I want? Because if you don't be the change might not ever occur. Like, you have to influence that.
Yeah. And it's always important too, especially if you're married or you have a long-term relationship of some kind. I actually worked for someone who lived with their sibling, and older, in their 60s. And so when you have someone like that in your life, whether it's platonic or not, have a discussion, but have a vision, especially if you're planning to stay together, right? Have a vision together where you're going, because then you can make decisions like Michael and his wife, where you're like, hey, we're going to send you to school so we can do the thing that you want to do. But it'll suck for a year. But if you do it full time, I'm making up a number, but it's going to suck for a year.
2
but
years.
Then whatever. I don't care about the details.
No, but I'm just saying it'll be end of December. It'll be about 2.5 years.
But it's like when that's over though, there's a benefit and there's a thing that they can enjoy, move towards together. And yes, maybe life doesn't always work out the way you want it to. Worst case, she can go back to doing what she was before or something similar to it if for whatever reason, like the whole industry dries up in 2 years, which is unlikely, but you never know.
With me, I mean, it's been scary, going when the place I was working at for 9 years closed my division and I got laid off. It felt like time. It felt like it was time for a change, because things were getting a little stagnant, and it was like, okay, I wasn't terribly disappointed or surprised. But I'd been there 9 years, so I had plenty of time to, I could have sat around and collected for a while. I actually didn't even collect unemployment at all after that job. They gave me a month of severance pay, so I got to sit and relax, and I pulled out my calendar and I wrote down in my calendar, before talking to anybody, start new job on this date. I hadn't sent out resumes yet. I hadn't gone on interviews yet, but I wrote down on the calendar, this is the day I'm going to start my new job, whatever that is. And that is the day that I started my new job. Awesome. I thought that I was going to be there. I thought I was going to retire there. I really did. It was a small company that was building. There was a lot of exciting technology.
Enthusiasm when you started.
There was some exciting technologies we were working with, and we were creating a market space for ourselves. And a year later, I got laid off because the owners went to legal war with each other. And I'm in a space where I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So I was like, I'm okay. Been there for a while. I'm going to collect unemployment for a little bit. I'm going to be choosy about this next thing, whatever this next thing is. And now I'm in the space that I'm in now. And the place that I'm going to, I am very excited about. And I think I may retire working for this company.
Cool.
So, but I'm willing to roll with the punches. So like I was willing to roll with the punches before, I'm willing to do it now. You have to be willing to accept the change and the things that you can't control, but you got to be willing to grab the reins and change the things that you can.
Very good. So awesome. It's a good note to cut it off on there. So go back and listen to the episode 2 more times.
Yeah. Get what you want out of your life. We want you to get what you want out of your life, whether that's enough time to relax at home and write that book, because we're really excited to read those books, or if it's just simply to spend a little more time with your family and or make a little more money, or just work a little less.
More time to game with your friends.
Hey, we want you to get what you want out of your life.
That's right. And, always have a plan for something you're moving towards as well, or else you just start treading water in life. And that's when you get into midlife crises. That's when you stick too much time in your head is always a bad thing for humans. We're not designed to be in our own heads too much. We're designed to always be out running and hunting. So keep running and hunting in your life, and you will get to where you're going. Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.